Today I'm going to show you my favourite ways of personalising your sewing projects. I love personalising my sewing projects, especially if I'm making something for someone else. I will do their initials somewhere, or I could even, embroider a little quote that they like, or a little handwritten note inside the bag in embroidery or print. So I'm going to share with you some ways that you can do it yourself. Hopefully this will be useful if you're making Christmas presents for anyone this year. It's also just a nice way of making your own projects that little bit more special and one of a kind. Here's an example of one of my personalised bags. This is the tall toiletry bag, and this has a little bit of wadding behind it, but it's not quilted. And I did some embroidery on the front there. I will show you in a second how I did this. I also did some for one of my little book covers. I'll also share with you where I get my labels from. I have 2 different kinds of label that I like to use. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video. There are so many fabric labels out there on the market. These are the 2 that I like to go between. The first one is this really nice cotton label. I had this made at the Dutch Label Company. There's so many websites that do the same thing. And then you've also got these little name tags, which are very classic and nostalgic. I had these when I was growing up in my school uniform. I think they can look very sweet on projects. Embroidery is definitely my favourite way at the moment to add a little something special to my makes. I'm not the best at embroidery, but I've found a method that's nice and simple. The main game changer for me has been finding these printable templates that I just design whatever I want to embroider, print it out onto these sheets, and you can stick it onto the fabric. Once you've done your embroidery, you then just rinse it under warm water. It comes off and you're left with your embroidered design. My tutorial for how to embroider will not be as good as the ones you can find on YouTube. If you just search simple embroidery letters or simple embroidery techniques, you'll find much more in-depth videos. And then you just leave it to dry, give it a good iron. But when you're ironing, try not to press too much on the embroidery threads because they will flatten a bit. So that's my little embroidery done. Here are some examples of the previous things I've embroidered. With the cross stitch, you literally just stitch crosses. I would recommend giving it a go. It's a lot of fun, and especially if you're personalising something for someone else, they're always very happy to see it. On something a little different, you could make some labels by printing some stamps with fabric paint. I had these custom stamps made a while ago for my packaging, and since then I've used them as labels printed onto fabric like this. I've also used them when I did pottery, and I used underglaze and printed onto the clay. You don't need to go out and get a custom stamp made. You could just use letters that you can find in like Hobbycraft. Once you've let them dry, you can cut them out with pinking shears, which gives this fun little edge. Then I usually just stitch them on with a nice small stitch length. And then finally, you could also give applique a go. I like to do very simple applique with pinking shears, and an R is not the easiest, so I did an F for flory. And I like using fabrics with a little bit of weight to them that aren't going to fray too much. And I gave the label a little background. I then used some bonder web to fuse down the letter to hold it into place so it doesn't move all the way around when you're trying to stitch it on. And again, just like with the previous, I use a small stitch length and just go all the way around the outside. I actually love how this one turned out. I think I'm going to make a little bag for Florrie for all of her bits and bobs. So there we go, there's a few ideas for how you could personalise your sewing projects. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one.